So BlizzCon just wrapped up a few days ago, and I think easily one of the more exciting things for me out of this year's event was the official reveal of Diablo II Resurrected. This is being called a faithful remaster of Diablo II and the Lord of Destruction expansion. It's got new, detailed high-res 3D visuals, enhanced audio, and various quality of life improvements, all while preserving the authentic experience and gameplay of the original, and it'll be coming to PC and, interestingly enough, also consoles later this year. Now, you can't mention a Blizzard game getting a remaster without being reminded about Warcraft 3 Reforged, which for numerous reasons was a bit of a disaster. It is widely considered a bad remake. It reviewed quite poorly and actually made the original game worse by full-on replacing it. So it's unsurprising that many are a bit skeptical of another classic Blizzard game getting a remake. Fortunately, though, development of Diablo II Resurrected is being led by Vicarious Visions. They're a studio that have actually been working with Blizzard for a few years now, originally doing some back-end BattleNet integration stuff, but most recently they're actually known for the work that they did on the Crash and Tony Hawk remasters. Both games very well received as faithful to the original, but also adding modern updates and improvements. So I guess the thing to be comforted by is that the team working on Diablo II Resurrected, they have a history of making good remasters, and this gives me hope. Now, along with the official reveal trailer that came out, as well as their website giving some basic details about the game, BlizzCon brought us a deep dive and Q&A panel, which gave a lot of new, interesting information about the work that they've done to Diablo II Resurrected, as well as just kind of what we should expect from this remaster of the game. And that's kind of what I want to go over here in this video today. What are all of the details and the things that you should know about the remaster of Diablo II? So let's just go ahead and start off with the most obvious change to the game, and that is the graphics. Now, originally Diablo II was a 2D sprite-based game. The remaster, everything has been completely updated. There are brand new animations, dynamic lighting, textures, and visual effects. In the deep dive panel, they said that their primary focus while updating the visuals was to deliver an authentic experience that players have nostalgia for, and then build on top of that. And in order to do this, they used what they called the 70-30 visual guide. So 70% of the visuals are going to be classic, maintaining the iconic shapes, colors, tones, keeping all of that a one-to-one faithful recreation of the original, and then the 30% new stuff is what they use to elevate those old graphics into the modern day. So obviously the biggest elevation and change is the move from 2D to 3D. In order to accomplish this, they wrote this physically based renderer that is actually applied on top of the old game. So while you play Diablo II Resurrected, the base game will be running in the background with this new visual layered on top of it. So this means all of the gameplay and systems are left intact. This includes things like the data, the rules, the game's logic and timings, as well as the fact that the base game originally ran at 25 FPS. That is going to be the case here as well, but the game that you experience will be running at a higher frame rate. I believe they said they're targeting 60 FPS with this. So the logic and how the game talks to the server will run on that original 25 FPS cycle, and then they use benchmarks to kind of line this up. So if you take, say, animations, for example, when a hit frame occurs, how long it takes to recover, things like that, are all matched to the original game exactly, making it feel and play the same, but actually run at a faster frame rate. All of these changes also apply to the game's animations, character movement, walking and running, attacks, spells, everything got a visual update and overhaul, obviously because they moved from 2D sprites to 3D models, but again, all of it is tied directly moment for moment in that original game logic. On top of this, every item in the game also got remodeled, things like the icon art that you see in your inventory, as well as the actual 3D item that falls onto the ground or that is worn on your character. To kind of prove how much of this is all rooted in the base game, it's actually going to have an option to toggle between the old original version of the graphics and the remastered version. Like literally just hitting a button will swap back and forth on the fly between the two visual versions of this game. So again, it is the original Diablo 2 game that they're saying, but just with that new visual layer on top of it. I have to say that it absolutely struck me just how great the modernization of the visuals look. I think it looks great. In a lot of ways, I think it looks even better than Diablo 3 or better than some of what we've seen of the still in development Diablo 4. I think looks phenomenal. The lighting, the new animations, the spell effects, everything. I was really blown away by the original trailer as well as the B-roll footage that they released. It just, when this thing comes out, if it ends up being a total flop, I can at least say the visuals have been impressive for me. But visuals aren't the only thing that are getting a remaster with this update. All of the game audio has been remastered as well. They've added some additional surround sound features along with more ambient and effect sound to kind of just build a richer experience. Now, they said they were careful to try to use a measured hand and not override any of the game's iconic sounds and effects. So for example, the skull pop of sticking that thing in your inventory is still the same as it was back then. But some of the things they have made enhancements and changes to that you might notice are, for example, when you're running, your footsteps are going to have a bit more variety to them. When the rain kicks in, there's a little more depth to that sound, and you'll hear more life when you step into the jungle. Things like that have gotten a pass and overhaul to, again, kind of modernize it and add a little more depth and immersion to it, I suppose. Also, of course, the cinematics, there has been completely remade. All 27 minutes, they say, shot for shot from the ground up, have been redone using new high-fidelity art. Unfortunately, they didn't give us any snippets of this. They're probably saving that for the big reveal or whatever. This could be a good or bad thing, depending on how these things turn out. You know what I mean? People can be very fanatical about how things originally were, and depending on how much they change this, I'm sure there'll be, you know, people complain about everything though, so there'll be complaints no matter what. I guess the good news is though, the original D2 is still going to exist as it was. In fact, one thing I should mention is that this remaster is not replacing classic D2 as it is in the Blizzard store. Like, unlike the Warcraft 3 Reforged replacing the original Warcraft 3, they're not making that same mistake here. You can buy the old version of D2 as well as this new remastered version. So that is a very smart decision, especially with how the Warcraft 3 Reforged turns out. Other things that make this kind of a remaster versus a full-on remake. They say in the interview that they opted out of doing a remake of the game and instead chose to do a remaster because the core of the game, Diablo 2 as it was just that good. This is meant to be more of a nod to the original, preserving the game and all of its structure and everything about it. Things like the balance of the game, monster spawn rates, item drops, all of that is identical. Everything is identical. They worked on some compatibility issues, resolution issues, things like that. And there's been some quality of life changes, actually some significant things that you should totally know about. For one, they've added a shared stash to the game. So this is going to let you easily transfer gear between your characters. You see this in a lot of modern day ARPGs, Diablo 3, for example. Now, originally in Diablo 2, players would use mule characters to accomplish the transferring of gear between one character and another. And when they were making this, they didn't see that whole process of trading gear to a mule, then logging into your new character, and then taking that gear back. They didn't see that as a core part of the gameplay experience, but more of a nuisance. So yes, they've added a shared stash. There will be rules to the shared stash though. You can't trade ladder and non-ladder characters. There's going to be a separation between online and offline character stashes to stop any duping issues and things like that. Along with this, they've also increased the size of the personal stash from a 6x8 storage to a 10x10 storage, just giving you more space to work with. There's been some redesigning of the user interface, so it's still going to have some of the classic stuff like the health and mana globes, the skill icons, and the potion belts, but it's been reorganized a bit. They've integrated the menu buttons and the stamina bar in a kind of a tighter, more cleaner package. They've also added an advanced stats screen showing you all information from your items, like for example, magic find will not have to be manually calculated, or you won't need a mod to figure out your magic find. It's just going to be right there in the game. Along with this, they've also added an item comparison tooltip, letting you hold down shift to compare any item that you're moused over to something that you have equipped. Now, they're not going to make any suggestions. You know how like Diablo 3 has the green and red arrows? They won't be doing that. You're still going to judge for yourself what gear you want to change out. But now, instead of moving your mouse back and forth between the two pieces, you can hold down shift and see that comparison side by side right there. They're doing quick keys to allow you to move items to and from your stash quickly instead of having to manually drag them. They've also added to the game, and this will be a little contentious change for people, auto gold pickup. So like in Diablo 3, when your character is running around, it will automatically vacuum up gold as you move by it. Now, the good news though is if you don't like this and you want the classic Diablo 2 experience of clicking on every gold pile on the ground, you can opt out. There will be an option in the menu to say don't automatically vacuum up gold. Again, I think this is one of those things that's a good change. Less clicking helps my arthritic hands, so thank you. There's also been some modernization to the front end of the user interface. So for example, your character is going to be much bigger front and center on your character selection screen. There's also these new updated backdrops of showing you kind of a background of whatever act your character is currently in. Overall, I think these are some pretty nice, again, modernizations, tweaks, quality of life improvements. Again, there'll probably be some people not happy with any of these adjustments, but what they are talking about making these tweaks and changes to don't drastically impact the overall experience, at least as I remember it. You might have your own personal take. That's totally fine. They touched a little bit on multiplayer, how it's going to work. So it is going to have the full 8-player multiplayer with all of the original features, the PvP, dueling, item trading, all of that stuff. Some adjustments they've made here is they've added automatic partying whenever entering multiplayer games. They've also made some improvements to how you browse servers, making that a little cleaner and easier to navigate. And they're going to be doing a revamp of the latter seasons. They're thinking of more frequent restarts. So instead of like once every 6 months, it'll be happening a little more often, probably lining up again with what they've chosen to do with Diablo 3. Maybe they do 3-month ladders. Might be a better thing. Once every 6 months is a little drawn out. And then also because this game is going to be integrated into modern day BattleNet instead of the old original BattleNet that Diablo 2 was on, they will be allowing duplicate names. So you won't have to worry about your name being taken because your names are now tied to your battle tags, your battle tag and the associated numbers. So you can have whatever name characters you want, basically. And then as they were wrapping up this, as I mentioned, the game is coming to PC, of course, but also to console. So they touched a little bit on the console version of the game. They talked about how in doing this, they're just looking to bring Diablo 2 to a wider audience, but not sacrifice that authentic experience of being a PC game. So obviously using a controller changes the way the game is played. You go from being an eye in the sky, clicking with your mouse, directing your character on where to go, to having direct control over your character and having to thumb through menu options and inventory. When it comes to the character control, this obviously removes things like pathfinding because you're doing the pathfinding manually. So this had some interesting interactions with things like Sorcerer's Teleport or the Barbarian Leap. Skills that would normally place you where you click will now, when using a controller, are now going to just have this default move distance depending on where you're facing. Diablo 3 is on console, and this is something that they're quite familiar with, trying to make those changes between skills going exactly where your cursor is placed and just facing your character in a direction and placing a skill. Things like that will work similar in the console version of Diablo 2. If you decide to play on both platforms, there is going to be cross progression. So it's not cross play. PC players won't be playing with console players, but if you move from console to PC or vice versa, you're going to have access to all of your characters, all of their progress, their gear, and everything. It's worth noting though that this is going to require you to link your BattleNet account to the console version of the game, and will require separate purchases of the game for every platform, because obviously Nintendo, Microsoft, and Sony want their cuts as well. So if you buy it on PC, you're not just going to get the console versions for free. They're not going to let that happen. A couple of other interesting notes and information about the game that you should be aware of. The remaster, again, includes the base version of Diablo 2 as well as the Lord of Destruction expansion, but if, say, you didn't like the expansion and you like the classic experience, you can play non-expansion versions of characters if you want to avoid any of those changes. Offline mode is also going to be available. There will be this one-time sign-in process just to verify that you have a legitimate copy of the game, but then after that, they say you can play offline for good. There is going to be mod support for the game as well. I didn't see a lot of specifics, but it's good to know that that will be there. And they also say, like I mentioned earlier, that Diablo 2 Resurrected will not be replacing Diablo 2 in the Blizzard shop. You can buy the original version of the game or this remastered version, whatever you like. And finally, when is this thing going to be playable? Well, they say that it will be releasing at some point in 2021. No specific date or window. They didn't say summer, fall, holiday season, nothing like that, but just 2021. It's coming to, again, the PC, Xbox, PlayStation, and Nintendo consoles. And there is going to be some testing going on. They've got a technical alpha underway, and you can register for a chance to get into this over at Diablo2.com. Now, I mentioned at the very beginning of this video that I think this was one of the better looking things out of this year's BlizzCon, which, as great as this thing seems, is also kind of sad. The thing that I'm most excited for from Blizzard in 2021 is just the re-release of a 20-year-old game. We're not getting Diablo 4, we're not getting Overwatch 2, they didn't announce a brand new IP. Hell, they didn't even announce one of their brand new phone games. Not that I was looking forward to that, but it almost doesn't matter because the point of this video is Diablo 2 Remastered, and I am genuinely really excited for this thing. I played quite a lot of Diablo 2 when I was younger. I've got a lot of good memories with the game, as I've talked about numerous times in videos here on the channel. So yeah, I'm totally looking forward to revisiting this game with this new fresh set of paint. Clearly, I'm a little hesitant, like a lot of you, given how the Warcraft 3 remaster went down, but at the same time, I'm well aware of the fact that this is a different team working on putting this thing together. And what they've showcased and what they've talked about so far, I think it looks good. I'm liking what I'm hearing. We, of course, reserve final reservation until the thing is actually fully out, playable, and we see if it's another remaster debacle, or if Vicarious Visions continues their great track record of recent remasters and just doing a good job. Again, I'm liking what I'm seeing. I hope they deliver. But there you go. That's it. That's what you need to know about Diablo 3 Resurrected. Thanks for watching the video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Take it easy. I'll see you guys later.